Hello there. Welcome to JagaVision, episode 93. I am Jared Nyberg, co-owner of JagaSilk here in Victoria, BC. We're on our 93rd week, which always blows my mind. So we're always drinking tea, have some really amazing guests join us. I encourage you to go through our archive of shows on youtube.com/JagaSilk and check them out. We've had people live from India, live from Japan, live from today we have actually a guest who's live from China, which I'm super excited about, from Kunming, and we have guests from across Canada, US, etc. But we just like to have a chat and drink some tea and learn some stuff and share some stuff, and I encourage you to go and check out those episodes. Today we're starting a little early. Normally I start at 1 o'clock, but I'm sort of experimenting with some different times for the show. We've kind of stuck to this 1 p.m. thing for quite a long time, but I'm going to try out 9 a.m. today, so it just makes things a little bit easier for my guests to join us. So it's not 5 in the morning, it's 1 in the morning, so still a big ask and super appreciated, but hopefully a little bit easier on the body. Without further ado, my guest, Jonah, are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
yep.
Okay, fantastic. All right, welcome to JagaVision, Jonah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
And Jonah is joining us from Kunming, China. He's one of the owners, of Bitter Leaf Teas, right?
Yes.
And we actually bought a guy one from you that looked so beautiful. I love the care it looks like you're doing in your sourcing for your ceramics. Your teas really stood out to me too, because you were talking about how you just basically sell what you're drinking regularly every day. At JagaSilk, we have actually 6 teas that we're constantly rotating, and so we have this kind of genre system, and we really love to just like basically understand that we're never going to drink everything that's out there, and to have a tea list that's like 300 teas long, it just doesn't give you the time to really get to know the selections, and anyways, but can you tell us a little bit about who you are and about Bitter Leaf Teas, because I'm just learning this too. This is our first time actually talking, so yeah.
Yeah, this is our first time connecting, really. I mean, we had a few messages, I guess, before this, but
a little bit.
Yeah, we're a tea company based in China. I'm half of the owners, or maybe 20% if you count the cats.
Sure, yeah.
But mostly, I'm half of the human owners. So me and my wife, we run the company, and we started in, I think, late 2015. So we've been doing this for a little over 6 years now, and yeah, it's just, I mean, it really just started as a hobby, drinking tea, and we got more and more into it, and we thought of ways we want to share it. And the original idea was to actually go back to Canada and open up a shop and all this, but as I'm sure you're aware, there's a lot involved with that. So we just started online, right. And the life is just so comfortable in Kunming that we've stayed here. So we just keep doing it from here.
Yeah,
keeps us close to the source as well, which is kind of nice. But we've been doing it for about 6 years now, and
really
it's mostly a curated collection, I guess. It's kind of like what you mentioned. It's hard to drink everything and really understand it, or have a vast catalog and feel like you really know it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of nice to just have a curated kind of tight selection. I would feel like that way we know the teas very much more intimately than we would if it was just a sprawling catalog and had a little bit of everything. It's hard to hard to keep up.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, we I was actually I'll be honest, I have my origins in Japanese teas, so I spent a little over 4 years, almost 5 years in Japan, and then the other owner of the company, my wife Miu, she's Japanese, and so what we do is we go to origin and we bring back we work with small lot farmers in Japan when it's a good excuse to visit her family when it's not pandemic, and then that's kind of been the impetus for the business. We started actually in 2005 when I was a student at UVic, just hauling matcha around in a duffel bag on the bus, and then we just kind of bootstrapped the business together, and here we are, still around, like in 2022. My goodness gracious. But yeah, it's been like a big focus on Japanese teas. But we opened up the tea shop in 2009, and so then we did this like this sort of delving in. We did 5 years of just matcha, hey, just focus on matcha. And I don't know if you can see it behind me, but we actually have a mill here. We mill our own matcha, and we got a tea roaster in the shop, so we like to finish fire. The tencha, that's a new thing we started last year, which I'm pretty stoked about.
Cool.
And then we're just kind of like peeling back the onion layers all the time, really getting into cultivars and micro lots and all that kind of fun stuff. But when it comes to Chinese teas, I'm super interested. We have a really great connection with this young farmer on Phoenix Mountain, and he's gotten us some really lovely selections. But the rest of my Chinese teas I've been buying when I bring them in from a lady who owns a farm on Yellow Mountain, and she's just got a nice network of teas that she seemed to have figured out what Mew and I really like, and so she sends us samples she thinks we're going to enjoy, and it's been really, really fascinating. I've been really getting into the Wuyi Mountain teas. I just love the raw oolongs. And then a friend of mine owns a company here in town called Cloudwalker Tea, and he does a lot of ancient tea. He translated a book from Taiwanese into English and really did a lot of research and study in Taiwan. But he's gotten really into the politics of pu'er storage and really geeking out on how and where you store your tea, and he gets really into that. And he was actually a guest on last week on the show. But you're doing such an interesting thing here. Again, like I mentioned, it's what you're drinking. Could you tell me a little bit about how do you choose the teas that you bring on, and can we make some tea together while we're talking? I guess I don't know. Maybe we'll start with.
Yeah. I think I already jumped the gun. I started.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So I have your little guy here. This, I think it's a 90 mil. And then
yeah, those ones are small. Yeah.
I have, for the tea that I got from you, should I brew this guy with the golden nuggets, or should I do the good as? What does that say? This is
good
the one.
As good as gold.
Good as gold. Okay. I love your designs. They're awesome.
I'm probably partial to the yellow tea, I think.
Yeah.
It's always hard to pick favorite. It's always hard to pick something over another, but I definitely I quite like the yellow tea. That's something that we just we've had some yellow tea before, but this is one from Mengdingshan in Sichuan, so it's historically more of a yellow tea production area.
Okay.
And it's
is that what I'm looking at?
I think
right
it's quite
here?
interesting.
Is this the yellow tea?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, that'd be that one. Yeah.
And so there, apparently in South Korea and in China, there's very different production methods for producing yellow tea. What are we? Is this like? I always, especially with yellow teas, they're such a rare style to get in North America.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but to during the enzymatic oxidation of the tea leaves, before the Kilgreen process, or like during that kind of oxidation process, there's a blanket put over top of them, and that's going to sort of stew the leaves a bit and kind of do a sort of a semi-fermentation that transforms the flavor dynamics and creates this genre that's only withered, correct me if I'm wrong, to about 20% moisture loss. Or are we like, I just got corrected on white teas. I'd been telling people how white teas are created wrong for like almost my entire career. So that's why I'm spelling this out, and I'm just confirming that this book knowledge is actually correct.
It's all right. That happens. It's tough with the internet too, because when you if you say something, it's out there forever, and then someone will point, hey, wait, no, it's not like this, and you're like, sorry.
I still have to correct my webpage.
We never proclaim to be the complete masters of knowledge of all things tea.
No. I always qualify how we make this, how we do this. I learned that one from that cook Jamie. Is there a Jamie Oliver? Yeah,
Jamie Oliver.
Yeah, he always had. He has this book where it says how I grow tomatoes or how I grow potatoes. I'm like, I'm gonna steal that.
I like that.
That's good, because then
I think that's really key. It's just, it makes takes you off the hook, so to speak, if anything is So I mean, we try to approach it that way too, and I mean also from the point of view that there can be some how do we put it, some more dogmatic types who might really lean on the right way to do it and this and that, and it can become I don't know, sometimes if someone's leaning too much on that and then they're trying to preach the right way to do this or that, then it becomes a bit difficult to enjoy it yourself. So, we try not to do that either. We want everyone to have their own experience, and if it's different than ours or what we recommend or how we say we would do it, then
Sure.
that's fine too. Really, it's just a matter of enjoying the tea, and if it's the same tea and you enjoy it a different way, then more power to you. So,
Totally. It makes sense.
yeah, try not to be like that. But there is, I mean, for processing, yeah, maybe there's a bit more. There tends to be a bit more specifics for sure. And yellow tea, I think you summed it up pretty well actually. It is pretty much just that. It's very similar to green tea for most of it in terms of there's withering and a kilgreen, all that, but in between there is that enzymatic fermentation, usually done by the menhuang or whatever. So kind of encasing the yellow. So it is kind of rolled up into cloth and it's moist, and then it's just left to sit there. And they do that several times, and they adjust it and all that.
Is it young leaf? Is it exclusively really young leaf for China? I understand, or is
Yeah, a lot of times they use smaller or higher grade pickings. So in terms of the grade, the more tips, but it doesn't have to be. So it could be all tips, or it could be like the one you have right there is a mixture of tips and some second and third leaves. And yeah, depending on the grade, just like most teas, you can kind of have varying results. But it will mostly be younger growth. There won't be as many of the big old leaves. So you will usually have a higher picking standard.
I love getting, when I get samples of teas, I often ask for them to send me what they think is like their favorite and what they think is really bad. I really like to drink bad tea so that I can understand what that even means. If this were but I end up choosing, say if they send me like 5 of a similar tea from the same farm, I often really like the second best. Either something about the first that maybe it's a little intimidating, or sometimes actually it's just, I find that there's a lot of umami and it'll be quite rich, but maybe I'm just making it wrong. I find that a slight firing, or like sort of like maybe they're trying to awaken some aromatics by being a little harder on it than they are on their premium stuff. There's something about that really resonates with me. Is this, though, if you were gonna like kind of, for the farm that you're buying from, is this the best they got, or is this kind of like second in line, or is this like kind of like the run of the mill stuff, or how would
I would say we actually have a similar. I would say we kind of have a similar taste. Like we do like the highest, like that can be enjoyable, the highest grade, more delicate, fragrant, nuanced teas. I mean, those can be great. We've tried those from various types, even for Longjing and for Pu'er and whatever, and they are great. But there's just that point of diminishing returns where it's just so much more expensive. It's like, and you're sitting there thinking, is it really worth it or whatever?
This is 300 a kilo. This is 80 a kilo.
Yeah, and you get just as, maybe you get equal enjoyment if all things, if you ignored the price.
Yeah.
We often have a similar kind of reaction. I like the first, I like the first flush things and whatever sometimes, but a lot of times second flush will have a lot of the strong character, but even more so, a little less delicate and a little more body to it,
right.
Things like that. At least, especially for Pu'er, and I would say even like this yellow tea and some of the green teas as well. We do a Longjing kind of private order thing. We have a contact there who gets it from Shifeng, which is kind of one of those top Longjing production areas. And I mean, it's just such an expensive tea. It's really, really expensive. And you get the highest grade ones, and it could be $500-$600 US for a couple hundred grams, 100 grams or so.
I have a very medium quality
they are
Longjing.
quite nice, but to me, my favorite is it's a Chihou grade. So it's still pre Qingming festival, but it's only like within like these 2 days, and it's certainly not the highest grade. It's more closer to like maybe the bottom half, I guess. But I can't remember which emperor it was. Even this emperor claimed that this is the best version or the best one because it has the most balance and things like that. And I think that's just a very important thing with any tea.
Well, that always struck me as interesting, is this whole concept of Qingming that you bring up just now, like this idea that there's this kind of very fixed calendar date that if you harvest before that, suddenly it has a higher value. And you see this in Darjeeling a lot too. It's like this like Beaujolais Nouveau kind of concept where like the first leaves out are considered like the best or something, but it doesn't really make any sense, right? Because that cultivar,
Yeah.
that region, that micro condition, all of these things are going to play a role in that ideal harvest moment when the flavor is most complex, and you harvest too early and there hasn't been enough time for those volatiles to really concentrate on the leaf tips, etc. So it seems like it feels like a mistake to just harvest based off of a sort of a preconceived notion of the right time. I'm sure it made sense, perhaps even up until quite recently. With now we have a lot of world pollution and we have a lot of climate change, and so there's just everything so wonky. It seems really hard to pinpoint, this particular date.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, each year it is. I mean, we've noticed just in our we haven't been doing this for what, 18. You've been doing it 18 years now.
18 years.
Almost 17 would it be?
Yeah, I guess so.
18,
2005. And where are we? Yeah, I guess we're in our 18th year.
2022. Believe it or not.
That's nuts. Yeah, I was in my early 20s. Now I'm an old man.
But yeah, season on season, it's or year on year, it's always, even just in the last 5-6 years we've been doing this, it's we notice drastic differences in the weather and the when things are picked and the quantities and it's, some people will chalk it up, especially from the outside. I've noticed people chalk it up to, they're just saying that to increase prices or this and that, but no, it's pretty wild. We've had like a lot of droughts. We've had snow even in the tea mountains here, which is crazy because I mean a lot of the tea, for at least for Pu'er and where we are in this province, are we're not that far from Vietnam and Thailand and all those places that snow is not very common there. So there's definitely I think there's a lot of variables at play that are also affecting picking times and the the quality each year.
And the timing on that, hey, like in Japan you have to deal with a lot more, I think. Well, I guess it depends on the region, but like one of the farms we buy from is in Fukuoka, and he talks about if it snows at the wrong time, you're screwed. Like if those young leaves that are just appearing, they appear, and then you have frost or snow and they die. You'll still get new leaves after that, but they're nothing compared to the slow growth coming out of the winter dormancy. That regrowth that happens after that early spring or end of winter chill is just it's just tragic. So it's okay. If I'm gonna make this tea, normally what I would do is I would probably I would guess boiling water, but maybe 90 degrees. Green teas I often make a little bit lower temperature. I've been experimenting with doing gongfucha. Normally though, for our Japanese teas we would use like a kyusu with the handle out the side. But I've been really enjoying and really getting into teapots that are glazed on the outside and inside, because there's less impact from the clay kind of changing the dynamics of the water and the dynamics of the extraction. And so when cupping to understand a tea before trying it out in different teapots, it's been really interesting to use a gaiwan or glass. I've been told kind of two different things. Some farmers, for example, are like 10 grams, 30 mils, or sorry, 90 mils, and it's just like this intense thing. A lot of times I'm hearing 5 grams for 120 mils. That's kind of what I've been doing in my bar. But how do you enjoy your tea? What's a nice way to make this particular tea? What have you been finding to taste really nice? And I'd love to
for the yellow tea, I would it's kind of it's not as delicate as a green tea, but I would still keep the temperature a bit lower. So maybe 90 degrees would be the max. I keep it around 90 degrees, maybe a little bit less, and then in terms of the ratio, you can about 1 gram to 20 mils or so. So
okay, and you would know better than me what this holds. I could weigh it on the scale, I guess, but why don't I do that?
That should be about 90 mil, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully we didn't. Hopefully there's no false advertising.
Should I fill it to 90 and see where we're at?
It's happened actually plenty of times, but
there you go. That's 60, and that is right to the top is 90. So we probably don't want to fill it that full, right?
It might be closer to 8. Like with the lid, it might be a little bit less, 70, 80, or 75, 80. Okay. So yeah, I would probably
maybe 3 grams.
Of that.
Should I do 3 grams?
Yeah, you could probably go up to maybe four.
Four.
Let's
Okay,
see,
I'll do four.
or yeah, three and a half grams or so would probably be about right.
I love this little scale.
Um,
It's great. I've been
yeah, it's handy. It's small and it looks all right. So,
I've been using this Asaya. It's nice
oh yeah, yeah, nice.
because it has like, but it's kind of overkill because it recalibrates itself with the weather changes. Um, and
Oh wow.
I've been looking
Okay.
for something that's like a little bit more like it's compact but it's stable. And what's kind of interesting about the
Yeah, yeah.
scale is it has these grips on the bottom, and it makes it feel really heavy when it's on the table, even though it's not that heavy when you pick it up. It's this very strange
It
sensation.
is perfect. Yeah.
That smells really good.
Um,
You can smell chocolate, and like the whoever fired this has got some good skills. It seems this is what it smells like. Hey, like that's it smells really nice. Okay.
yeah, we're quite happy with this producer. We're gonna actually visit them maybe. Oh, what? We're juggling things so many places around right now. Probably in a week or so, gonna go up there and have a look because they also do Ganlu green tea and some and then yellow tea. So
Nice.
it'll be fun to see the process up close because usually yellow tea is one of those ones. It is more rare and it's something that you don't see as often. The process,
Mm.
and people are quite secretive of it too because of how they do it. Apparently, it's because the processing has such a big impact. A lot of people don't always readily share it. But they're very willing, which is great, and we love taking videos and pictures. So we will
Amazing.
capitalize on that.
I sure appreciate that. You know, like we have a lot of clients in the coffee industry, and
Mm.
there's a lot of because we're predominantly a wholesale company, is where we've kind of found our niche, um,
Mm.
and I would say that that for many of them, you know, they have like these kind of like the old school companies have this very protective mentality over where they're sourcing, how they're roasting, all of these things. And I think you see
Yeah.
that with some tea companies too. It's like my proprietary blend of this or that or the other thing. And I find it so much more interesting when both the farmers and the merchants get really transparent with not only sourcing, which is amazing, but with those production methodologies. I find that because who's going to be able to copy you anyways? You know, like if you got the skill, you got the skill, right? And if
Yeah.
and you're going to be keeping on learning and keep on getting better. So even if they copy you perfectly to where you are now, it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to
It's
to
true.
match
It's
that
true.
later, right? Because I once had a potter tell me, you know, people ask him how long does it take you to make this bowl, and he, you know, and he was told by one of his students actually the right answer is his age, because it takes that long to develop experience and really like you know maybe to throw a bowl is like this very quick thing, but to be able to do that with skill
Mm.
and to be able to have you know this sense of this craft product at the end, it takes years and years and years to develop. So I think it's very true
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
these tea farmers do. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to put some cold water in the kettle.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Go for it. Yeah, it's true. I mean, with any skill, it's like that. Wait till you get hair comes back on.
Okay, I am back. So this producer in of the yellow tea, they're in. Pardon my ignorance over geography.
No,
Kunming,
no, no, it's fine.
Kunming. I put Yunnan at
Um,
first, and I was like, "Is Kunming and Yunnan? Are they both provinces?" Oh my goodness, I'm so ignorant.
yeah, Kunming is the city, or Kunming is the capital of Yunnan,
Okay,
and that's where we live. So this is where like this is the province where pu'er would
right,
come
right.
from, and a lot of other teas too. Actually, I think it actually produces the largest amount of green tea in China as well.
This is
Just not as
surprising.
well known because
You don't really
it's
hear about.
mostly like daily drinking kind of cheap green tea. It's not like the high end ones, but some of them can be quite good still.
Hmm.
But it's a lot of really ideal conditions for growing tea. So they do have a lot of other teas. There's Dianhong, which is a popular
Golden,
black tea as well.
golden needle, right?
But this yellow tea would be from Sichuan, so it'd actually be from kind of how far, like an hour or so outside of Chengdu.
Okay.
So yeah, Mengdingshan is the place, and they're kind of well known for their green tea and their yellow tea.
Hmm.
Um, so they're
Fascinating.
one of the few traditional places that does yellow tea.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, this is
Yeah.
A friend of mine owns a tea company in Vancouver called O5 Tea. Um, and
Oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
you've been there, yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah. When I visit, my brother used to live right around the corner on McDonald.
okay,
So you
sweet.
just like two blocks and you're already there.
Amazing. Yeah, the owner Pedro. We've been buds now for since before he started O5. So it's he used to have a company
Cool.
called Dow Tea, that was loads of fun, and he had some really cool yellow teas then too. And he was actually the one that introduced me to my first yellow teas, and they were fantastic. But it's been proven really hard to source. I've found that when I do find that I feel like I have a good connection in China, then suddenly it's just not as good as I thought it was. And I think one of the keys it feels like is to do what you're doing, which is to actually be there. And I think that's one of the ways that Pedro's been able to develop O5 really well is when it's not the pandemic, his Chinese teas are the result of traveling to origin and having these personal relationships with people. And I think that that's why I feel so much stronger about our Japanese teas. I think that human interaction piece is so much more critical than I think people realize, for not only developing an interesting company that perhaps feels more spiritually sustainable, but there's also this element of being able to, I think when you have that trust or that kind of friendship you can develop, I think then people get excited to share with you some of their best teas, right? So there's a lot of yeah. Okay. So
it's a very big factor, I think, that personal relationship with where you get your tea from and who you work with. It's I mean, not just for the trust and knowing what you're getting, or not getting ripped off for this and that, but just in cultivating a good relationship and being able to also work together with them. And there's many times where we've worked with someone and they've had ideas of what they might want to do, and we can support that in other ways, or we can come with our own ideas and give them things to do, and it's mutually beneficial. I find it's a much more enriching experience than just going through a wholesaler or just trying to find the best price or this and that. It's
totally
it makes a big difference, and it keeps it interesting for us too, rather than just looking at it as a just strictly a business, or we just sell a product and this and that. It's also about having the relationships with people and being able to cultivate that. It's a big part of it.
So much more interesting. So much more interesting.
Yeah.
Am I putting so it's 60 grams or 70 grams ish. I'm just gonna measure it the first time, and then I'll try and learn. I'm such a scaled person. It's actually bad, I think. How long would you suggest I brew for roughly? Am I going kind of like this 15, 20 seconds? Should I do a rinse?
The very first one I would do like 0 seconds. So I would, well, that's probably pretty clean. You could drink the first brew. It doesn't even.
It looks like that.
You could get by without rinsing it, I think. But I would do a very fast infusion. So I wouldn't pour it directly on the tea.
Do you drink the first?
I would just pour it. That's what I would do, at least. Yeah, I'd pour it kind of, so I'd make sure the stream kind of hits the side of the bowl a bit, so it's not hitting the leaves directly, and keep it in that one place, so you're not pouring it all over the leaves, but that way the hot water approaches it from the bottom and a little more gradually. And I would just brew it for, in and out pretty much. So for the first brew,
am I pouring too slow?
let it get in there. Yeah, it looks good. Perfect. Perfect.
All right.
And then I'd use the lid to just move the leaves for a second, and then I'd pour it out right away, pretty much. So.
Like that? Am I doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And then pouring it out.
And the first brew might be, you could toss it and treat it as a rinse, or you could drink it. Either way. We usually do rinse them to open up the leaves, so we probably toss it. It might be a bit light, and then second brew should have more flavor. So you can give it a smell, yeah. And then once you pour it out, you can even let it cool off in the Gongdao Bay in the pitcher, and give it a nice smell. Might be.
This pitcher smells amazing. Okay.
Yeah, I always love that. I know it's sometimes it's kind of a gimmick thing, I think, or I used to think, but some teas just really do smell pretty incredible when they cool off in the pitcher, and I was like that part. So I do it. I don't care. I'll pass it around.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, no, it makes sense. It totally makes sense.
Smelling the cup and all that. I like it a lot. But
I'm into it. So I love the smell of the tea after I finish drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
So this next steep, I'm doing roughly same thing.
Yeah, Yeah, pretty much the same thing. You can brew it for 5 seconds or so. And then basically each infusion we just add about another 5 seconds. So next time it'll be about 10-second brew,
Okay.
15-second brew, and on kind of. And to be honest, a lot of times when we brew, the only thing we really measure is usually the amount of tea because that can be sometimes pretty hard to gauge by eye, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like that's where the scale really like earns
Comes
its
in.
keep.
Is in that initial brew. And I mean, I guess it's also, I like it for understanding the brewing vessel that I'm working with at first. So if
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
weigh the
yeah.
water in the brewing vessel and then I get an understanding, then it allows me to develop a ratio and a recipe that from there I can sort of start to build on this intuitive element, right? So to know this is 60,
Absolutely.
like where I fill it to, this, I guess, I don't know if it's correct, but I was filling it to about 80% of the Gaiwan, maybe a little bit more like 75%.
Yeah. About where the lid kind of meets the bowl is usually where I recommend or where we fill it up to.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little lower than
That's
that.
where we fill it to. You can fill it
Yeah,
however
yeah,
much
yeah,
you
yeah.
like.
This is an open this is open to interpretation. It sounds like this is good.
Yeah,
This is good.
absolutely.
You know, some of the best teas I've ever had were just made by feel. But again, as oh, did I lose you? Hello?
No, no,
oh,
still
there
here.
you go. Okay. Your screen froze there for a second. So as a wholesaler, I'm always trying to find a recipe that I can then give to baristas so that they can feel a little bit more confident making the teas. Smells, you know, like the chocolatey aromatic that was in the leaf has given way to something that's a little bit more grassy and green tea like in a really interesting way. Huh.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The smell is definitely different than the taste. I feel it's a little more vegetal than
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's
it
like a
has some
little bit
green
of
quality, but it's smoothed out kind of.
there's a little bit of roast in the finish that kind of seems to curb the tannins a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but there's the chocolate and the cup afterwards. That's great. That's cool. It's a nice tea.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
This is
I haven't had that one in a bit, actually, now that I think about it.
yeah. No, I think it was the golden nuggets that I had.
Okay, yeah, the Lo Chato.
Yeah, that was really really nice. I made it in. I got another one from you. This guy. It's kind of like I liked how you had the
Oh yeah,
Kunming
yeah, yeah.
or the crazed like the crackled glaze. It was really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your Gaiwan don't come with a little plate. Like a lot of Gaiwans have these little plates. Are they just sort of superfluous and don't really matter, or is there a reason you don't, or what's the
Depends.
deal there?
Yeah, it kind of depends who you ask. They definitely have a purpose. But for the way we brew tea, normally not. We usually brew just strictly Gong Fu style. So we're just, it's usually on a tray or whatever, and we're just pouring directly in the pitcher or cups, and then that's it. The tray is quite useful if, like, if you went to Sichuan or whatever. A lot of times that's one of the places where they just drink straight from the gaiwan.
Oh
So
wow,
they'll have the tray, they'll just grab it, and they just kind of tilt the lid, and they'll just drink directly from there.
interesting.
So if you're
Cool.
drinking directly from it, then that's super useful because then you're not burning your hands, which
Yeah.
most people probably don't do when they're drinking tea. But yeah, it's fun, really fun to go. If you ever have the chance to go to Chengdu, there's a park. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of places, but even in just the main park, kind of in the city, there's like a tea house, and you could just go and you see all these like basically all these old people kind of just hanging out with their tea all day, just drinking like a jasmine green tea, and they just have it in the gaiwan, and they just drink straight from that, which is
I just want to do
is
that
really cool
in
because
like a
it's
random
a
park
totally different way.
in Sichuan. Like that's just what I want to do. Yeah, it's just like
Yeah,
just go
yeah.
hang out.
You see
Just
people,
pretend like I'm
especially
like there's nothing weird or different about this like 6'6" gargantuan Canadian just kind of like hanging out drinking tea in a park in
yeah,
Sichuan.
yeah. You'll definitely stand out, but
I want
I'm
to.
sure you keep going back, you'll fit right in.
Yeah,
Don't worry
there you
about
go,
it.
there you go.
That's usually how China.
So if, yeah, actually, almost. So I haven't actually had the opportunity to go to China. I was so close. I had the plane ticket booked. Me and my wife were about to go from Japan to China, and then there's some random thing that happened where they changed, or there's like a network error for flights going to China from Japan, like specifically in Japan, where they couldn't approve short stay visas. So if I wanted to go, I needed to go back to Canada first and then go to China. It was so random, and it was just like I tried to rebook and go through Hong Kong and stuff, but like, it just didn't work out in the end.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be here. It'll be here. It's something I highly recommend. I mean, and now that you have the familiarity to it, like you're talking about the Wu Tees and Phoenix Mountain and Huangshan and stuff, then it's it's a lot of fun to visit once you kind of know the teas and you actually see the land. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And
it was gonna be Wu Yi. We were gonna go to Wu Yi with a black matter scientist. This guy who's like studies black matter. He's like this Swiss scientist, like Chinese scientist in Switzerland, but he loves to come to Victoria to visit his friend because he's rich, and then he just like brings amazing teas, and I'm like, where do I get these? He's like, I don't know, like my uncle made this, and I'm just like, okay, and I'm sure it's not his real uncle, but who knows? And then but it was just magical teas, and then we were having a talk, and then he was gonna just take us around in Wu Yi Mountain, and I was pretty stoked, but it didn't work out. We were also gonna go to was it Fujian? I think maybe. No, Anzi. Anzi. We were gonna. Is Anzi in Fujian?
Wu Yi is in Fujian actually. It's kind of. Yeah.
Okay, so we were gonna go to Anzi and Wu Yi. So I guess Fujian.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cool. Yeah.
But it didn't work.
They're all close together, and then you go down a little more, and then you get to Phoenix Mountain. That's where the Dansong Wulongs are from, and they have the overlap with Wu Yi teas as well because there's a lot of similar varietals, and that's where they've shared that I guess they have the same genetic heritage, but the processing is quite different in each one. I mean, even though they're the same style of tea, there's a lot more light roasted in Phoenix Mountain, and then Wu Yi is more the slightly heavier roasted and stuff. It's quite different. But,
Very cool.
Yeah.
We're almost at we're actually that's interesting because I think when I do make the trip, it'll have to be. I'm very much, like I told you, into these Wu Yi Mountain teas, but our best connection is in Phoenix Mountain, so it'd be a great excuse to go in just that area and make it happen. So we're almost at 2022 harvest season, if we're not already there. Are there any teas you're particularly excited about that we should be paying attention to? Where are your thoughts on this?
Every year it's all of them, but every year it's also like it's a combination of.
Well, let me rephrase that question.
It's a combination of excitement, anticipation, and like nerves as well, because
you don't know what it's going to be.
We kind of have an idea of what we're going to get and what we want and all this, because we have some that we get each year, but there's always a lot of new ones that show up and things that we don't expect. So you're always kind of wondering, and you also want to make sure like whatever you're getting is good and that quality is consistent. So you're always there's a lot of a lot of things to do, a lot of
But is there an interest?
All the moving parts too. It's always a mess. But I'm very much. I mean, we always look forward to Pu'er because that's kind of our main focus, and that's where we spend the most time. And this is kind of in our backyard. So
is there a particular farmer or a particular sort of project that you've been sort of working on and that you're starting to see develop, and you're really interested in this year's version of that project?
Well, one of the ones that we're always actually I'm drinking it now, drinking last year's version. There's one. It's not even a super expensive tea. It's just a very standard Iwu tea. So Iwu is one of the more famous villages kind of in Yunnan for Pu'er. It's very historical, and prices can be insane. But if you have decent tea that's not from really old trees and all these things, then it can still be quite reasonable. So we've been working with this farmer since our very first year. We get his tea every year, and that's kind of our year of I guess this year be year of the tiger tea. So it's a fun project because we incorporate artist work and things like that, and it's all. I just got to show. It's all organic, it's all everything.
Love the art so much. It's so great.
Thank you. That would be my partner. I give her all the credit for all the design stuff. When people compliment, I can only pass it off. I do words, she does visual.
Nice.
And that's we know our place.
Sure. Yeah. But, great combo. That's awesome. Okay.
But yeah, that one we always look forward to just because we have all these years to reference, and it is a little bit different each year. I mean, it's quite similar, so it's hard, it's hard to describe it a whole lot differently each year, but when we have them all side by side, you notice the little changes, and it really highlights the difference that the weather and all those other factors make each year. And then this year we're actually going to do something a little bit different. So we're going to take the same material and we'll do a pu'er, but we're also going to do a white tea and a black tea with the same thing.
Nice. Okay.
So we've been doing different processing. We tested last year. We bought a small amount and treated our customers as guinea pigs, I guess.
Sure.
But
Awesome.
it was fun. I enjoyed the black tea, and I think this year it'll be good too. So
That's fun.
yeah, so this year we're gonna use the same material for that. So it'd be nice to have kind of three teas or three styles of tea from the exact same material and see how that translates across them.
That's exciting. That's exciting. This guy in Phoenix Mountain, the red, he does a red Milan Xiang for us. So it's like
Oh, cool.
it's a red tea or a black tea
Mhm.
that's been using a cultivar that you would traditionally make
Yep.
into more of a darker oolong, right? And so he used that. Pardon my terrible Chinese pronunciation, but the Milan Xiang cultivar for crimson tea, right? And it's so like it has that osmanthus florality with this really beautiful kind of sugared bassy tone, and it's actually really interesting to see that. But so I'm actually really interested. This farmer that would normally be, you're telling, I guess if I understand what you're saying, be making pu'ers is kind of experimenting with doing some white teas and some red teas. Are those going to be on your catalog this year? Is that something that
Yeah, definitely.
as
Yeah.
a new fan of your business, is that something I'll be able to buy?
Yeah, definitely. We'll be having that. Yeah, we'll be selling them. So we'll be. I think we decided. Yeah, we'll press the white tea into cakes, but the black tea will probably be loose. We don't usually press black tea,
Sure.
but yeah, so it'll be available for sale. So that'll be that'll be fun. And then we have some other ideas we want to do later with him in terms of processing, because I mean, as you know, if you get into pu'er and you start, they're just it's a big rabbit hole that you can go into in terms of the storage and all that, but also the processing and the terroir and this and that. So I feel like there's kind of endless experiments you can do.
Right.
I know some other companies have done them too, and I always find it interesting. And we want to take on some more of those, and he's definitely one of our most reliable farmers, and he treats the land well too. It's no pesticides, no fertilizer,
Nice. Okay.
no overpicking. It's manually weeded. It takes about a month just to weed the whole field, which is crazy.
Wow.
And he just lets them grow. So trees that would be normally, like, I don't know, waist to chest high, if they're pruned and treated like normal terrace tea, they're, way above your head. They're 7-8 feet or whatever.
Wow.
I mean, I guess that's only a little bit above your head if you're 6'6", but you might not have a problem picking those or looking over. But
Sure.
for most of us, they're pretty tall, so they look good, but they're not super old. They're like 40, 45-year-old trees.
Okay.
But the way they're treated, it's much better. And then as a result of this, many of the trees die off because they can't compete with the space. So he just kind of lets that happen, which does mean lower yields,
Yeah.
but ultimately means much better quality from what he does get.
Right.
So it's it's just an approach that he was one of the first ones that we worked with that kind of had that approach, and we just noticed a massive difference. And now that's kind of our priority. So when we visit places, we kind of want to know how they treat it, and pesticides and synthetic fertilizers and things like that are the most obvious thing that you don't want, and what what to ask about. But even just things like how often is it picked? Do you pick during the fall? Do you, how do you remove the weeds? All these little things. Now, he's been kind of instrumental in helping us with our own knowledge.
Sure.
Again, even in these, few years, I feel like, one year you feel like you learn a lot, and then next year I feel like I'm just learning even more, and it feels like.
Tell me about it. I didn't even know.
Ask you, actually, after this many years, do you have that feeling
I
where
do. I didn't know.
10 years and
did not know that
all of a
finish firing existed. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Like with senchas, like I'd heard about it, charcoal roasting, and we had this really great project where we had different roast profiles for a yashishang from that farmer. So he did like a darker and a lighter roast of the same harvest, which was super interesting to me. But I did not know that senchas were finish fired, and that in Kyoto apparently they don't finish fire. So it's actually it depends on the micro region in Japan whether or not your teas are fired at the end, and that's been super interesting. And then one of the guys who I feel is really good at it is this guy in southern Japan, this Mr. Takaki that we work with, and and he's been really cool for showing us like I had him on the phone and he was telling me how to set the RPM on the roaster and we were like kind of doing some trials and stuff, and
Yeah,
it's been really really interesting. But like I feel like I still remember like I think in the beginning we were dealing with some big company, and then very quickly we realized we resonated with organic and smaller companies, and so we moved to this new relationship. But then after that one, we went to a much smaller company, and that fellow was growing everything single cultivar, and I still remember just learning about cultivars. It just blew my mind. I was like, of course, like it makes so much sense. Like, of course, like Pinot Noir, Merlot, and wine. Like, of course, Okamidori, Yabukita, or what have you, and in tea.
Yeah.
It was just, and then getting into like nurseries and like understanding also the year to year, sure, but like also the same cultivars grown in different areas of the same tea garden and how they have different flavors. It's just so fascinating. I think like
The amount of sun that plants get versus these, like we've had tea from the same garden, and we have the shady ones and the sunlight ones, and you have it's insane how much of a difference it makes. Like it might not flavor is the same. You could tell it's the same tea, but the mouthfeel was to me night and day. You find these little things, and sometimes you find them by accident, because we got this. Hey, this tea doesn't taste like what we got. But, oh, that's because it's whatever. And then they tell you. Sometimes you have to pry, but it's always very interesting. It's just things you would never,
I've thought
even
of,
when you're in the industry, you just don't know until whatever time.
That's why I say I'm a Padawan learner, man. Like I fail every year. Like I just, we've been. I guess we're almost 20 years at it, but I still feel like there's people that have. Like Fujioka-san and probably a lot of the farmers you work with, like over 200 years. The Chasen artisan that I buy bamboo whisks from, 25 generations. Like blows my mind. Can you imagine that?
25 generations.
25 generations. Like 500 years of that same family cutting bamboo whisks. Like just blows my mind. Just think about how much of like world history that family has like observed and experienced.
Really.
But I'm getting to the end of the show here. I only asked for 45 minutes of your time, and here we are. I feel like we could talk for hours. But maybe if I do get to Kunming one of these times, maybe I can. My wife and I can pop by for a tea. Do you guys do like a tea service, or is it sort of like call you up and be like, hey, can we?
You definitely give us a call. If we don't have tea, we have whiskey. We have all kinds of things.
Nice,
but
fantastic. And you need to come here when you go to Vancouver and visit family. Come to Victoria.
100%. Yeah, 100%. That might happen I don't know. We're trying to make it happen this year, but it's all such a It seems pretty good for a lot of countries, but for China, you have to quarantine for 3 weeks when you get back, and this and that. It's like it's quite difficult, and it depends on your visa and all these other things. So they're sometimes it might be a surprise, but believe it or not, rules can be arbitrarily enforced here. So you also never know what side you're going to be on.
That sounds like government in general to me, but
If we can get to Vancouver, I would definitely make the trip to Victoria, and it'd be great to stop by, and we could definitely chat more.
It'd be lovely.
Make you here we stopped. We kind of stopped doing all the hosting people when the pandemic hit because there was no one here. Right. Then we kind of shut down. We had a studio space and kind of shut that down. So we're mostly like online operational at this point. Sure. But I'm hoping in the future we'll have something available again where people can come and we can actually brew properly, because it is a fun part. There used to be a lot of travelers, a lot of tea tourists and things like that. It was always fun to meet people from different places and get to share in person, because when you're just doing it online, it can be a bit of an impersonal experience. You're just drinking tea with the same person or with
Well, this is why I started JagaVision, man. I really felt that was lacking. It's been really nice to have all these basically drink tea with people and just talk, and I miss that. I think that in person. We could open up, like all the BC restrictions are basically mostly gone, but it kind of freaks me out. I feel like it's not really science-based. It feels fairly political, but just kind of trying to figure that out. But if people are wanting to find your teas, can you tell people watching where they might want to go and find bitter leaf teas?
It's pretty easy. Bitterleafteas.com.
Amazing.
That's it.
Okay.
We have everything there. That's pretty much the only place. But our Instagram has what we're up to and all that, and you can always send us a message and chat. we're happy to, always happy to share a bit of knowledge or anything, or just, shoot the breeze.
You know, I'm I sigh because I have these two questions that I wanted to ask the whole time we were talking, and I
Oh,
didn't. But I'm just gonna. Do you have a couple extra minutes for me? Are we
yeah,
okay?
go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
The two questions are in and because yeah, and everybody watching, go to bitterleafteas.com. Like, you just need to do it. It's an amazing catalog of teaware and teas. Show pu'ers. You said you're drinking stuff that was harvested this year. There seems to be like an industry kind of fascination with only drinking after their particular age. And if you don't age them first, you're just kind of being ridiculous. What are your thoughts on that? And also teaware. I want to hear about the teaware sourcing. Like, this is so fascinating to me because your teaware is so beautiful, and it seems like there's a very careful process that goes into its sourcing that's very similar to how the process that you go into carefully sourcing your teas. So those two questions.
Yeah, so the first one for pu'er, or for sheng, for raw pu'er, yeah, there's definitely one school of thought that is, it's no good until 10 years, 15 years, whatever. There's definitely a group that would believe that, and I think that might have been more applicable to certain styles of tea or certain styles of raw pu'er, and during a certain time, because when they were produced before, it'd be very, very rough. And to be honest, we're not even totally sure. I mean, people now are trying to recreate that. Like, pu'er was kind of almost reinvented in the early 2000s, with the Taiwanese coming over and trying to replicate some of these older cakes. But historically, it was mostly consumed in southern China and Guangdong, Hong Kong kind of area. So there, it was, a lot of times it was more for digestive and whatever purposes, and it was aged, and it gets very, very red and very smooth and this and that. So the quality does change quite a bit. But the raw material that was used and the way it's processed was also quite a bit different. These days, there's much more care and attention paid to that. So I think a lot of times it is much more drinkable now. It does depend on the person's taste. Some people might still find, the ones that are produced these days to be more astringent or bitter or whatever. But I find them quite drinkable, and I like it because there's a complexity and there's evolution over the brews, and yeah, and then with time, with aging, it also changes. But the conditions also affect that. I mean, it's the humidity, higher humidity and heat will cause it to develop faster into more of almost like a show pu'er. A dry and cooler climate will yield a very slow change. And I mean, if it's dry enough, cool enough, then it really won't change a whole lot. So you have to pay attention to that. But personally, I believe that for most teas, and most of the teas you're going to get, if you're going to get it from us or even a lot of our major competitors, things like that, a lot of them are very suitable to drink now. But it does depend on the person. Some people's physiology doesn't handle it as well. Some people find it harder on the stomach or whatever. And if you're looking at it from a Chinese medicine perspective, then a lot of that can also factor in, and then there's explanations there and whatever. So I also recommend, if something doesn't work for someone, then don't force it. You don't have to be drinking same year sheng just because I said you should or can or whatever. If it doesn't work for you, we all have our different response to chemicals and caffeine. There's so many other things besides just caffeine too that interact with our body that I can't speak for everyone. So I would never I never want anyone to do that just because that's what we do.
Sure.
In that case, then they should be looking for something else, or an aged tea or show or whatever. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. And I think a lot of the debate about, it has to be aged for this long or has to be whatever, some of that stems from, they process it differently now, and now it's not right, and they, you can't age it because of it can be drank now, it can't be aged, and vice versa or whatever.
I've heard that about single cultivar pu'er cakes, for example. Just like, they didn't age well, so they got to go back to the old recipes. And
there's a lot of debate about that, and I try to kind of stay out of it because it's not always based. I mean, I've experienced here watching the processing, asking questions, this and that, but I just feel like a lot of the arguments aren't always based in what's actually happening, or a lot of hard facts. So yeah, I try to kind of stay out of that if people want to believe it, whatever. But sometimes there's other motivations too, maybe.
Sure.
I've noticed in the industry there can be some players who will push a certain ideology or agenda or dogma or whatever about something because it kind of suits either their style or their products or whatever, and we try to avoid that. We
Sure.
like it all comes back to this is how we do it. This is what we like.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it works for you, great. Then we're happy. If it doesn't, then hopefully it's just one more step on the way to finding whatever does, and that's also fine. I'm happy that if people find another seller, another whatever that they enjoy, then that's what matters the most. It's not that I think everyone should necessarily buy ours or follow our.
It makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you for your thoughts there. That's
Yeah, no problem.
you're kind of basically keep it open-ended. There's maybe some truth to it,
Yeah.
but likely it's just something you need to assess for yourself. So, and I definitely agree with that. What about my second question? This idea of your sourcing for your ceramics. Can you talk just a little bit about your ceramics before we end the show here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of a big part of it too. We really just enjoy it. It's just part of the process. I mean, what's in the cup and the quality of the tea and this and that is great. But a big part of what we enjoy is the process of brewing, and part of the process of brewing and part of the I guess the ritual almost is having things that you enjoy too. So the aesthetic part. So we just like things that are pleasing to the eye as well. It enhances the mood, just like if you're brewing and you had good music on or something, right? Like it's that kind of session where you feel good and you enjoy things. So I think a lot of this also is my partner's influence. She's the one who does the design. She has that background. She's an artist and all this.
Sure.
So
Aesthetics play a huge role.
she has the eye for it. So yeah, and she was the one that first kind of started getting into the teaware, and then she finds this artist, and once you kind of start finding them, a lot of them that we get from our in Jingdezhen, which is a very a long history of ceramics, porcelain, but also just ceramics in general. For the empire back in the day, but now it's almost like a hub for a lot of artists. So a lot of young Chinese artists produce work there, and it's amazing because it's a place you can go and you can get very traditional pieces that have traditional designs or techniques and methods. But there's also a lot of more up and coming and kind of
like cat
progressive
cats.
artists too.
Love
Yeah,
the
who
cat
paint
cats.
cats on things. Or I mean, the one I'm holding now, it's a mythical. I don't know if I could see.
Okay, yeah.
It's there's a wood-fired cup, and it's very delicately painted, but the theme is it's a traditional or a mythical creature, a qilin in Chinese mythology, but then it's a cat warrior because we just wanted something like that. So we asked, can you do this, and they did it, and it's just fun in a kind of traditional style, Qinghua, which is like a blue painting, but then it's kind of has some gold touches as well. So it's just fun. It's just a nice creative outlet, a nice way to also express ourselves without just focusing on the tea. To have the teaware that we think is interesting and kind of curate that is also a big part of it. And it's it's the things we use and the things we kind of enjoy. So it's a nice little
What's your
kind of side avenue for expression.
I love it. I love it. It's just a lot of your Instagram posts that I look at, I'm just like, wow, this is just it's inspiring. Again, we get some really. I'm really happy with some of the teawares we get from this co-op in Nagoya, and Tokonomiyaki. They just some beautiful Kyushu Japanese pots, and I was kind of looking at how people take pictures of their product, and just. There's some people that are just so talented, and you guys are definitely in like top where I'm just like, wow, it just makes me want to drink tea out of this vessel. So I'm just it was a great learning for the aesthetics. I think you guys have a really not just and I was excited by the content, and then but sometimes somebody's just a very good designer, and to be able to I shouldn't say just it takes a lot of work and experience to be a good designer, but to then bring the teas over and to actually bring the teaware over and to see it not on the other side of a camera lens, but to actually hold it in my hands and to actually drink the tea. And I was super inspired by the chi, the overall, the teas and the teaware. I was really stoked. So that's why I was like, I want to talk to you. Let's drink tea together.
I'm glad.
And it was very,
That's all we want
but it was very post. It wasn't just like looks beautiful, let's talk. It was looks beautiful, drink, experience, inspired, let's talk. So I'm really glad that you were able to make this time today, and I really thank you for it, Jonah.
Oh, thank you. I'm always happy to, and we're night owls here, so it's no problem to stay up. I'm pretty used to it.
I think we're at 2:15 in a.m. in Kunming. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think I should probably let you go. I really appreciate you coming on. So it's bitterleafteas with an S.com.
Yeah.
And if people want to follow you on Instagram, it's at bitterleafteas as well, right? And they can see some of those beautiful photos I was talking about. Go and read the bio about you guys. Love the bio, but also just really appreciate the beautiful catalog of tea. And JagaSilk will be definitely, I will be buying some things from you in the future. I'm sure, guys. I am, like I was saying, I'm a new fan of your business. I think it's
oh,
great.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah, we really look forward to coming and visit as well. You can definitely. We have a lot. We actually enjoy matcha quite a bit as well, but
Sweet.
it's
Okay.
one of those areas that we're not nearly as experienced. So
Sure.
we always have some, but never quite. Actually, I was watching your how to brew video or how to whisk it, how to make it earlier. I was like, okay, so I picked up a few things. I'm gonna give it a try.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's very
we
food
definitely
service
learned a lot.
oriented.
I can't wait to visit and try some good matcha.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of the pu'er world, right? Like, in that it's all about like as fresh as you can possibly get it, right? Like,
Right.
very little
Yeah,
enzymatic oxidation, steam it and preserve it in like cold storage, like freezers, and then like mill it and drink it as close to the milling date as possible. Like, it's such an opposite, It's kind of interesting that they're both like stem from the same botanical. But anyway,
still in the same world. But
same world, but just very, very different spectrums. Thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your time today, Jonah. You have a wonderful, I guess, sleep, and then the rest of your.
I will.
Okay. I try and do that. It's all about that cellular regeneration. We gotta survive to be able to take care of these businesses and these relationships that we develop over the years. So.
Got a treasure sleep.
Awesome. All right. You take care.
You have a great day. Yeah, it's great to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Okay. Goodbye.
All right. Take care.
Bye. All right, so that was Jonah with Jonah Snyder with Bitter Leaf Teas. Had a really great talk today about his project with his partner there in Kunming in Yunnan, China. Really enjoyed today's show. So if you liked what you saw, I hope that you can click to subscribe, click the notification bell, and when we go live in the future, you will see the notification appear. Next week, another really awesome show. We have Marcus joining us. He is from Roots of Change. He's traveling around the world in just people-powered transportation. So no motors, no electricity, nothing. And JagaSilk's been sponsoring him now with tea, and we send it every couple of years, it seems like. I don't think he expected this trip around the world to be in its like 4th year. When he started out, but he's in South Africa right now. We've seen him surfing in India, Thailand, like all these different islands. He's just, what a fascinating fellow. We first met him when he went across the ocean with Adam Creek. He was one of the rowers on that boat that flipped in the Bermuda Triangle, and they got rescued at sea. And he's just this very inspiring human being. So I encourage you to tune in next week when we have him on the show. And hope you enjoyed today's show, and please don't hesitate to go and look at some of the older shows on youtube.com/JagaSilk. You can go and buy some of these teas at JagaSilk.com. Today's teas, though, you'd go to bitterleafteas.com and support Jordan over there in Kunming. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week. It should be 1 o'clock next week. I did say we're experimenting with times, but stay tuned for a time change I think that we're going to have in April. So yeah, looking forward to that. Take care.